The Secrets of Middle-earth is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit GiveStarQuest.com.
Then the voices of the Ainur, like unto harps and lutes, pipes and trumpets, viols and organs, and like unto countless choirs singing with words, begun to fashion the theme of Ilúvatar to a great music.
You're listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth, where we discuss the hidden themes and deeper layers found in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, whether in his writings or in any of the media derived from them. And today we will be discussing music in the Legendarium. This episode will focus on music in the text, as well as just kind of the overall role of it in the Legendarium, but we definitely want to discuss the scores of the films and TV show in a later episode. But I am Jeff Haecker, and joining me today are Alix Murray. Hey, Alex.
Hey, Jeff.
And Patrick Mason. Hey, Pat.
Howdy, Jeff.
All right. And, we're not going to sing the whole episode, but we could. So, make sure you thank StarQuest for that. So,
yeah, I don't know how appreciative people would be if I decided to sing. Yeah. Suddenly the ratings would drop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So before we kind of get into some of the actual songs in the text, I thought I would just kind of discuss a little bit on kind of the role of music in the Legendarium itself. And I mean, I think it comes from Tolkien's background. He's a linguist and a poet. So I think just his background lends itself to writing a lot of songs and poems that make their way into the text. And I think he uses the music as a device in the story in a couple ways. I think he does it to relay myths and legends, but also as a way to, have mirth. Like you have characters who are singing, great songs of great deeds. And then you have Tom Bombadil singing about, the trees and the flowers and the river. So
yeah.
But before we kind of get into the text, any thoughts on, or anything I want to say on the role of music kind of overall?
The role of music in life, or the role of music in Middle-earth?
In Middle-earth.
Okay, it's like, like you mean the real world, the real Middle-earth?
Yeah. That'd be a longer podcast.
It would be. Well, I do think, actually, as I was thinking about this podcast and some things to discuss, I was actually thinking about Plato's kind of writings on music and discordant music versus harmonious music. And I would like to think that there was a certain degree of influence of Platonic thought in Tolkien's development of music, because, of course, you have the harmonious music of Eru Ilúvatar and the Valar, and then you have this discordant theme that starts to be introduced. So I think the real world understanding of music and Middle-earth, I think they do beautifully kind of interweave together.
Yeah, I think for Tolkien, music, playing with words, right, which is, kind of what his degree was, or what his life's passion was, playing with words, right? So he made up languages. He wrote long ballads, I think is what we would call them. And when you play with words a lot and you work with them and the sounds of them and you speak them out loud, you want them to sound nice. It's sort of just this thing we do as humans, I think, as we try and make the words flow in such a way that is more harmonious and less discordant. And I think you find that with most languages. They have a flow and a pattern and a meter to them. And almost just even the spoken word will sound like music, especially if you listen to a foreign language you've never heard before. Most of them will flow in such a way, especially, and oftentimes you can tell, even if you don't speak the language, who the more eloquent speakers of the language are and who aren't, because of how well they work.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Work the music, work the words and the letters and the sounds. Yeah, and it's interesting because I think a lot of ways we think of language in the written form, because we deal with language often far more in written form, which is a visual medium, than we do in the audio form, right, which is the spoken medium. But that wasn't the case, and still isn't the case for a large portion of humanity. But it's interesting to me that most of Tolkien's main characters are illiterate in a time frame or a world setting where most of them probably wouldn't have been. But we get kind of the upper crust literate.
Yeah, because Sam learned his letters later on in life. That's true. That's true. Yeah. You know, it's funny. It's interesting what you're saying, Patrick, because I live fairly close to the Welsh border. And so, you know, you do get a lot of Welsh, like just, you know, coming to the village or whatever, you know, or into the larger towns. And a lot of them still speak Welsh. So can't understand a word they're saying. And it does sound quite sing-songy. And I like the way it sounds. I mean, who knows what they're saying? But when they speak English, I think it also sounds lovely and sing-songy. You know, they keep that. And, you know, I always wonder, what do Americans sound like to foreigners? Do you know, we understand the language so much. And so obviously, but yeah, there are languages that have a song quality to them. And then, you know, when I think about the Welsh, music is such a big part of their culture. Singing is a huge part of the Welsh culture. So, and I'm sure Tolkien was aware of all of that.
Yeah. Well, and he would have, I mean, the songs of the Norse and the sagas and such, I think I'm not an expert on those. Really, I don't know too much, but I would imagine they're, you know, at least in every, you know, pop cultural portrayal of Vikings, they're often singing and their tales are through song. Like we've talked about it before. They're very much like the Rohirrim are very much the Norse, you know, like the Norse in a lot of ways. So
the horse.
But yeah, I think we'll discuss them a little bit later, but yeah, just to kind of go back to the start of the Legendarium, as it were, at least chronologically, the Silmarillion, the creation of you know, Fea, or Ea, I think is creation in Quenya, is the Ainulindalë. It starts with the creation of existence through the music of the Ainur. Eru Ilúvatar first creates the Valar and the Maiar, and has them sing, you know, existence into being, basically. And then we all know how that goes with Melkor in his Discord popping in to, you know, to shake things up
over and over again.
Yes. And then Alex, I think you had some notes about Tolkien specifically.
I did, because I'm going to talk a little bit about my favorite race of men, the Rohirrim, at some point. But as I was thinking about who would have been perhaps a Valar that they felt connected to, I cannot locate my, was it the War of the Ring, Morgoth's Ring? I cannot locate my copy of that, but I know it's here in the house. And anyway, I started thinking about Tolkien and Orome, and I was just curious if they had any connection with singing, and perhaps there might be something from the first age and the second age coming into the third age, with some of the scenes with the defeat of the ring. But this is a quote from Morgoth's Ring, and it's the music of the Ainur and the coming of the Valar. But in the midst of the war, a spirit of great strength and hardihood came to the aid of the Valar, hearing in the far heaven that there was a battle in the little world. And he came like a storm of laughter and loud song, and earth shook under his great golden feet. So came Tolkien, the strong and the merry, whose anger passeth like a mighty wind, scattering cloud and darkness before it. And Melkor was shaken by the laughter of Tolkien, and fled from the earth, and there was peace for a long age. So, you know, this is an example of music and singing pushing back evil. And, and Tulkas was the god of, he wasn't the Valar of war, was he?
No, not really. He was sort of the wrestling is what we always
Hulk Hogan
metaphor too.
Hulk Hogan of the Valar.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, brother, right now.
I'm telling you, Morgoth, right now. I'm put a hurting on you.
Exactly. Oh my
Brother.
gosh. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, they are brothers.
They are. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So you can see my Southern upbringing comes through every once in a while. But I love the fact that it's his song that and his merriment, his song and his joy, and interestingly his anger. I guess I was thinking, the saying, it's in Latin, I can't remember what it's called, but it's joy in fighting. What is it? The joy of war or something. The joyful soldier, maybe. Sorry. Yeah. I can't think of what it's called either in Latin and clearly not in English, but that's what it reminded me of. That kind of spirit.
I think you're right that music is often used to push away evil, because there's Tom Bombadil does that. He sing to the Old Man Willow to save the hobbits, and then he also doesn't he do the Barrow Wight is it music that drives the Barrow Wights away? Okay, he does. Yeah.
Because the Barrow Wights have their own song. Yeah, that they sing or that they sort of force into Frodo's mind, and then Tom comes up with his own song and sort of reply to put him back to sleep. And it's interesting that Tom is such an embodiment of that idea that both what we get from the Ainulindalë and kind of what we have from Tulkas, that you can sing your way through life, and that this sort of whatever it is can abound from the singing, because we encounter Tom always kind of in this mode of singing, or even when he's talking in rhyme, or in long form rhyme where you only rhyme every once in a while. Which typically, like if Tolkien was going to write a long ballad, that's what you would run into, which that's English. We're sort of stuck with these set rhyming patterns because of the we only have so many, words that end with this sound and this other stuff. Yeah. Right. Whereas the French and the Spanish get away with all kinds of things because they've got, I can have a million words that end in A or O or.
Exactly. And make some up as I'm going along. Yeah.
And so that also reminded me, while we were talking of kind of the music versus evil, is in the Silmarillion as well. One of the other big examples is Luthien. She has a couple times where kind of music comes into play. She goes and she sings to Morgoth to lull him to sleep, and that's how her and Beren steal the Silmaril, because that was Beren's great quest given to him, that if he did it, Thingol would let him marry Luthien. And then she also her and Sauron have their famous rap battle, where they're kind of weaving, sorcery and spells through their songs against each other. And I don't remember all the details because we covered that a while ago on this podcast,
but that kind of makes sense.
She sings the tower down.
Oh yeah, right.
All of the tower on Toll Amp. No.
Oh yeah, Toll. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The Werewolf Island.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, it kind of makes sense. I'm just thinking about this, that if all of Adar or Middle Earth was created through song and music, it makes sense that throughout all the ages, music would have power, because that's the essence of its creation.
So when they talk about Olmo, often it's not just like that the waters exist in certain places. It's the sound the waters make as they move through those places sort of bring him into the hearts and minds of the inhabitants. So especially the elves, but also the men to a certain extent, like that it's the rushing of the water. It's the waterfall. It's hearing the water's movements brings Olmo to those places. And so it's the same kind of idea, that the sound is what brings you to that Valar.
Yeah, and I forget their names, but his two servants who have they have horns that they use. Offhand, I can't remember their names. But I believe they use horns to, call the waves and do various things to impact the waters and stuff. So, is there any other, in the Silmarillion, at least any other major instances of song that are, I know, like, and I have it on here to talk about later, but the Song of the Arundel, but that's written by Bilbo later. But in the Silmarillion itself, is there any kind of other major instance of song being used that I'm missing?
We mentioned Luthien, but her initial introduction to Beren is also a song and dance, right? She's singing and dancing in this glade, and he comes upon her.
That's right, yeah.
And right, this is a pattern. We have the same thing with Meline and Thingol, right? Thingol encounters Meline in the woods, and I don't think the Silmarillion describes that encounter as singing and dancing, but I kind of expect it to be, just because the two instances are patterned off of each other. And so I think, it's this, and it's Tolkien drawing from his own life, right? From the experiences of his own life that he had with his wife. But the sort of entrancing quality that music has. Music
and dance.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. Because Edith was I believe she played piano. And when at least, because I'm thinking back, we did the Tolkien biopic last year, and I think it's true that she played piano, and so that was kind of one thing that kind of they had in common. And I remember, like, one of my earliest introductions to Tolkien years ago, like when I was what got me really interested was after seeing the movies. I did a book report on a Tolkien biography or something. And I still to this day, 20 something years later, remember it talking about how Edith would play piano, while he would be writing, and that was kind of the background to his writing. So yeah, nice. Definitely. Yeah. So music definitely was, was the soundtrack to his, to his writing. So to his life.
He was such an incredibly multifaceted person. When you think about it, the music, the art, the literature, the mythology that he knew, and the history and the languages. Do you know what? Are they making people like that anymore? I mean, he was just incredible.
Well, as we kind of move through to the Legendarium, to the kind of the first published thing. So, a lot of people's first encounter with the world was through The Hobbit. And it had some very notable songs, and it had a good mix of humorous songs. Like the first one that is in the book, I believe, is the Chip the Glasses song, where which to their credit, the Hobbit movies, that scene was pretty good, where they were the dwarves all arrived at Bag End, and they were one. Yeah, that was the good one. But yeah, they arrive at Bag End, and they're eating all this food, and then start cleaning up, and he's worried about them chipping the glasses and the teacups and everything. But it's funny that it seems like they improvised this whole song about this while they're doing it, which is just such a Tolkien thing. Like, you can imagine he was very good at coming up with stories. Like, he could just spin them out very quickly. When he was telling stories to his kids and stuff, but
but if you do it all the time, you can do it.
I walk around the house singing what I'm doing, and the children have slowly picked up on that. So if it becomes a regular practice in the household, then it's easy to do. And I think in The Hobbit, we have a couple instances of songs that are relatively I don't know, tongue in cheek, funny little, tunes, little ditties, that aren't real deep. They're not real, they're not epics. They're not ballads. There's the chip the plates, the glasses, and then there's the goblin song, right? Which are, they're almost songs you could expect a group of kids to be singing, right? And we have the little song as they come into Rivendell, which I think, Thomas's thoughts on that is that the reason that song is so kid-like is because we're actually dealing with child elves and not fully grown elves. But there are a lot of those kind of songs, which I think matches, if I remember when The Hobbit was published, I think that's when his kids are younger. And those are probably the kinds of tunes that he's rolling around in as he's walking around his house. And at the same time, they're probably the kind of songs he thinks he can get away with in this book.
Yeah. And I mean, the humor in his songs kind of pervades the entire, Legendarium, at least more so The Hobbit and then the Fellowship. I think by the Two Towers and Return of the King, things are getting pretty dark and there's not as many, many happy songs to be sung, but definitely do the Mirkwood elves also sing too at some points?
I think they do when they're at the party, when everybody's getting drunk. Oh,
yeah. Well, I think when they're in the woods and they're having their feast out in the woods and Thorin and company are trying to come upon them, I think there is some singing that happens that attracts them to that, but it's nothing the dwarves or Bilbo really understand or know. Okay.
Yeah, and then we also kind of get the more, epic ballad type of song in The Hobbit, which is, I think the best example of that is the Misty Mountains, with the dwarves, singing their tale of what happened to them. And I think, again, the first Hobbit movie did that. I think it did it very well, in that scene where they are, singing that song before the fire, and it's kind of like very much a fairy tale, very much a, I can see why Bilbo fell asleep. Like it's almost like a magical quality that came over came over him while they were singing it. I can't remember if that's how it is in the book too, if he falls asleep, but yeah, I really do like that song where it kind of, it basically is the Star Wars opening crawl that tells you everything you need to know about what, about what they're going to do. So, I don't know if y'all had any other specific thoughts on the Misty Mountains song.
I mean, it's to me, I think it's been interesting that it's been adapted so many times. Other people have picked it up and really wanted to play it out of Tolkien's, out of the Legendarium and the songs that have been put in it. I feel like it's the one that gets the most adaptation. Most bands or groups or individual singers will want to pick up and play that song. And I think it was probably, if there was like a number one hit among the dwarves, it would probably be in that top 10.
Yeah.
Going mithril, double mithril. And I know we're not, and speaking of the dwarves, I know we're not talking about the adaptations, but just talking about dwarves singing makes me think of Disa in Rings of Power and the Stone Singers and how the dwarves, it just kind of reflects their culture compared to, Elvish culture. Like elves sing songs to tell of what happened, thousands and thousands of years ago. And dwarves are singing songs to find more stuff and to get their stuff back.
Yeah.
But the Misty Mountain song, of course, it's been adapted a million times. You can go on YouTube and there's a million, versions of it by different people. Caution, if you listen to it, you might want to start building a fire and go on a quest. So
in the middle of your living room and go on a quest.
Yeah.
Just like Bilbo.
Leaving without his handkerchief.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other song that's interesting in the Hobbit is the Road Goes On song, because this actually it kind of plays into both the Hobbit and Fellowship, but it's Bilbo's kind of walking song about that he we see him sing it or hum it in Fellowship, the movie, when he leaves, but he first sings it on his way back to the Shire in The Hobbit, in the book, and just kind of, or maybe he's not singing it, but it's, it's been made into a song because it's, it's a poem, and what are songs but poems that have, that you sing in a certain way, but
yeah, set to music or a tune. Yeah, absolutely. I love The Road Goes Ever On, though. That's a great song. It's very deep. It's like on the surface level as a child, if you sing that with your children, that's great. But then, when you're an adult and you read it a second time, you go, oh, wow, that's actually quite deep and wisdom filled, if that's the right expression. And I think a lot of the surface songs are like that. But then when you listen to them again, they sound, you can listen to them at another level, especially if you've gone through the whole of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then you go back and look at these songs. They're much deeper. They're much richer, I think.
Yeah, my problem is there's another very popular song that has a tagline: "The road goes ever on, and the party never ends." And so, me and Jeff would be familiar with it because that particular country singer went to A&M, and he got popular while we were there.
Oh, I don't know this one. Okay, you have to tell me later.
The Road Goes On Forever and the Party Never Ends by Robert Oak. So
Robert Oak.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe he was
listen to it.
Maybe he was paraphrasing Bilbo here.
I almost feel like it had to have been somewhat inspired, because it just it's not the same song by any means, but I feel like it sort of expresses a lot of in the sort of modern country music version of reality versus the Middle Earth one. It expresses a lot of the same kind of sentiments. This sort of the wanderlust, the idea that we've got to, get out there and go do things, but sometimes those things are terrible, and you're going to come back changed, and things aren't going to be the same sort of idea. But I don't know. It's hard for me not to have those two attached at the hips in my mind.
Yeah. Well, it was so that. The Road Goes Ever On was kind of adapted for the Hobbit movies for Battle of Five Armies in the kind of the post-credit song by Billy Boyd. I forget the name of the song offhand, but Billy Boyd, who played Pippin, he's a singer and has a band, but he wrote a song that has a lot of the same lyrics as this song, and it's a song about going home. But there's just reading the text of the lyrics, there's some lines that are just slightly tweaked from it. So, which I hadn't realized before, but yeah, so it's cool that's kind of, that made its way into into those movies as well. Again, even we just did the Five Armies not too long ago, and, it has its problems, but I think that song was pretty good to be added in.
That was one of the highlights of the film, and not just because it was at the end.
Well, before we move on from The Hobbit, because I think a lot of the songs are really in Fellowship more than anywhere else that we are familiar with. But anything else about music in The Hobbit, in the book?
I think my real question is, when y'all read it to whoever, if you've ever read it to your children, do you sing the songs?
I have not read it to my kids yet, so.
Yeah, I've read Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit to my children. Well, I think I've said this many times, every year until they were 16 years old and asked me to stop. But I sang every song, and as my children would say, properly, meaning with some British accent from someplace on this island. Yeah. Not an easy task.
Yeah. I sing them as well. Not well, but as well. I find I tend to use the same, I don't know how to put it, but the same notes as audio versions I've listened to. Do you have like your own sort of headcanon version of what the notes are, or do you pattern off? I do,
but also I found this. I think it was a Danish composer put all of the songs to music, and it was an orchestral piece with the singing, and the songs of the Ents and the Entwives song. I actually found this recording. And so the last year I read Lord of the Rings, I was like, I'm just going to play this music in these parts so I don't have to sing these songs anymore. And, and that's actually what turned my girls off. They wanted me to sing. And I was like, oh man, I'm so tired. But, but we ended up, they're interesting. It's an interesting, version of a lot of the songs, and I actually used that a little bit as a what would you call it, an experiment or some kind of sleep therapy with our dogs when they were puppies. I would play the Ent and Entwives song to them, and they would, when it was time for them to go to sleep. And to this day, if I play that song, they could be doing anything and they're like, oh, let's go to sleep. And they just go. Yeah. So we all know that song. And so I have in my head, not necessarily songs that other people sang, but my own very bad renditions of them. You know, I'm not a singer. I played the cello for many years, so I'm familiar with music, but no, I mean, there's no one but my children. You know, sometimes there are songs that only your children think are amazing. Mm-hmm. Those would be all of the songs from Middle Earth that I sang.
Well, we can move on to the Fellowship because, yeah, I think that's kind of like, because it's the first book in the trilogy, or first two books in the sextelogy, or whatever since each Lord of the Rings novel is split into two. But anyway,
yep.
Yeah, so we get I mentioned we already talked about Rogue Goes Ever On, but that makes a reprise, and this is, 50 years later, 60 years later, something like that. That it's,
yeah.
You can imagine Bilbo just, like, he's sung that over and over the years. He's probably, like y'all sing to your kids or, do the stories. He's probably done that with Frodo.
Yeah. That's a nice thought, actually. I like that.
But yeah, so we have that one. There's a lot. There's I believe the home is behind the world ahead. That comes in the Fellowship in the book, not in it's in Return of the King, the movie, but I believe it's a song that they sing, or at least it's something that was later put to song for the movie in the Fellowship. I was trying to find the specifics on that, and unless either of y'all know it offhand.
No, I don't. I was just thinking about the song. Remember when they had to get to Crick Hollow and they were all taking their baths and they were all singing a song in the baths? Do you know what I mean? And I always thought that's so weird. Yeah. to sing when you're, well, I guess people sing in the shower now that I think about it. Yeah. But it was just funny like that. Yeah. But it's just
I think the world is behind it. That is sung by Frodo, Pippin, and Sam as they are hiking, I think, through the Shire on their way to go on to Rivendell, or go on to Bree. It's one of their songs that they sing. So yeah, there's a lot of walking songs, which again in Rings of Power, that is something that comes back with the Harfoots. They have their kind of famous walking songs. So it's very much a part of Hobbit, Harfoot culture.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least in the Rings of Power, at least they kind of acknowledged the importance of music for Middle Earth, Yeah. I had something there, but and also, when they were in Bree, there were some songs that kind of took me out of Middle Earth, which is fine, and then brought me back into this one. But remember the one where it's the Hey Diddle Diddle song that is sung in Bree. I can remember reading that for the first time when I was, who knows how old I was. And I kind of got annoyed because it took me out of Middle Earth, but that's before I really understood what Tolkien was trying to do with creating Middle Earth. Like this is an ancient remnant of a song that we're remembering from the Third Age. It's not him putting a nursery rhyme into the song. It's how that song has shifted and changed and how we know it today. So now I think it's cool. When I was younger, I was like, this is dumb. This is like a kid's book again. That's not what I want to read.
Well, and it's also like you can imagine. I mean, the town of Bree it's one of the few towns that we really see. Like we see, like Minas Tirith and Edoras, and those are kind of in the Lord of the Rings. Those are kind of the two main human settlements we see. But they're not really towns per se. They're more like they're the royal capital, whereas the Bree is just kind of its own, its own thing. It's kind of an independent city state almost kind of a thing. So I guess to me, it kind of represents it's like the modern world kind of starting to take over the, these ancient, kingdoms with the kind of development of this modern town. I'm sure Edoras maybe not Edoras. I'm sure Minas Tirith has, it probably has a pub or a couple pubs somewhere, but yeah. I don't think we really see those No,
I was thinking of like, we don't know about Mickle Delving seems to be quite a developed place in the Shire. They probably have their own versions of songs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And we didn't even, we have the Green Dragon, of course, in the Shire. Yeah. Can't forget that.
Yeah. And I like these songs. You have the walking songs. You have this, song that happens in Bree, and you have eventually Sam Gamgee's song that he makes, or poem. And it's sort of, it plays up to the hobbits being, I don't know how to put it, but like simple country folk. Not quite, but they're not considered part of the greater narrative of Arda, right? There are these little people that are sort of out of the way, trying to live their own smallish lives in the grand scheme of things, and what's important to them is the, how the crops are doing and what's going on at the other hobbit hole down the street, and writing letters to each other and that sort of thing. And then you have Bilbo's songs, which are not that, right? Bilbo sort of showcases again, both, in who he is and what he's done with the adventures in the Hobbit, but also with the songs he makes, right? And we have this sort of very different view of what hobbits can be, when they put their mind to it, showcased through the songs. And I really like that. I liked how I don't know how much thought Tolkien put into that. I would guess he probably did, because he was extremely detail oriented in kind of a crazy way. But Bilbo's song is very deep, and it's very much about the history of Middle Earth and the important events. One of the major events that happens, and it's not as sort of just the sing-songy, working or walking or playing kind of a song.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bilbo comes up with a lot of poems and songs because he's definitely become more of an elvish hobbit than others, because he goes and spends however long, years in Rivendell. And he writes the Song of Eärendil. And if you want to hear a recitation of that, you can look back to our Middle Earth episode on Eärendil, the Voyage of Eärendil, and Thomas did an excellent recitation of that there. But it basically tells the story of Eärendil, which the Silmarillion hadn't been published yet when that came out, so the Song of Eärendil I can't remember if the full version is in the Fellowship, but it gives you hints. Okay. Yeah. So it gives you hints of what this history is in, Arda that most of us are like reading about this. Or like, oh, Eärendil, what about that guy? That's interesting. But it's history to the elves, and it's, it's communicating that history. So, and then of course you can go, once the Silmarillion was published, you can then go and read the actual story of that. And he also wrote the Riddle of Strider, which of course is kind of a, it's Aragorn's opening crawl about who he is, and kind of reveals his.
I just found that in my copy that I have right here next to me. I feel like I keep my copy of Lord of the Rings with me all the time. But I was just reading about that. And it's what I love about that, how I would always like present that, because it says that, Boromir was being a little bit arrogant about his opinions. I know. It just happened once. And so, and I, whenever, I'm not going to sing this, so don't worry, but whenever I would sing this, I would sing it in like this really old, country, English accent, I suppose. And when Bilbo goes up and it says, Frodo felt Bilbo stir impatiently at his side. Evidently, he was annoyed at on his friend's behalf. Standing suddenly, he burst out, all that is gold does not glitter. Not all those who wander are lost. The old that is strong does not wither. Deep roots are not reached by the frost. And I always did it like he was mad. This was like his little sword to defend his friend. So you'd have to I don't know if there's an equivalent to, how do you like sing like a tough guy? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, don't you mess with my friend. a rap battle, I guess, but so I've always tried to, and then, when my girls were really young, they were like, yeah.
Yeah. It's what do they call it? It's not a diss track because he's not dissing her. It's whatever the opposite of a diss track is.
Yeah.
He's a takedown of Boromir or something, I guess.
Yeah. He's singing praises, but he's like, don't mess with my friend. Yeah. Kind of like, how you have a little yappy dog and they, some are quite, if they come after someone and you think, if you're the size of my shoe and you're ready to take me on, I respect you.
Yeah. And then, we also, speaking of like legendary songs about legends, we get a few lines of the Song of Beren and Luthien, which is, an adaptation of that story. And again, you're getting these hints of things, which I think in the appendices of Lord of the Rings, it tells you that story in a truncated form, but when the Fellowship would have been published, they didn't have the appendices yet. So again, you're getting these like hints of things, of, this huge world that is, has yet to be published. So
yeah, basically every 2 chapters, there's a lore drop that's just like crumbs, basically.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't know where these crumbs go to yet. It looks really good.
I wonder what it must have been like to read this when it was first published. And you get these little hints, but you have nothing else for it. And then, decades later, there it is. Whereas we can just reach casually on the bookshelf and pull them off and get all we want.
Yeah, to me, it's like in Star Wars when Obi-Wan says, I fought in the Clone Wars with your father. And you're like, in 1977, everyone's like, what is the Clone War? And then now we have movies and a show about it and all this other stuff. So,
oh, yeah. Yeah. And beyond. I remember wondering what the Clone Wars were, just so you know.
Yeah. So, and then a few other things in the Fellowship. We already kind of touched on Tom Bombadil and his role in his songs of his Hey Dole, Mary Dole.
Tom Bombadil. Sorry.
He's a merry fellow. Yeah.
To Rings of Power's credit, that ending of season 2 with that song, I think was very nice. So yeah. Even if the portrayal of Tom was not quite Tom, not quite the Tom we wanted, but
yeah, not the Tom we needed. But
exactly.
One of the things I do like that he does well, like with Tom Bombadil's music, everybody sounds different. Like even if you're just reading the poems, if you're reading them and they're supposed to be sung by somebody, the cadence of all of them are very different. And I think that's well done. That really speaks to Tolkien's mastery of English. And what I love about the way Tom Bombadil spoke and the way he sang, he could easily move in, one flowed into the other. And I think he even says that in the book. He was talking and then suddenly he's singing and then he's talking again. And his, just the cadence of his songs sound like he's just kind of walking along and dun, 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 and yeah.
What he's seeing, what he's doing.
Yeah.
But like we said earlier, that song, his song is important because it's what stops the Barrow Wights from coming in, who have their own little incantation song that
their creepy little song.
Yeah, another rap
creepy.
battle. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
And then it's not necessarily a song, but a poem that I think we'd be remiss not to mention is the Ring poem. That tells you all the lore of the, it's the lore of the rings, all in a very short little, short little thing. But I don't think it's necessarily meant to be a song, so it's more of a poem. But I think we at least have to mention it if we're talking about, this kind of thing. Yeah. That's what the whole thing, the whole trilogy is about.
Yeah, and I often wonder who made the song, because is this something Sauron made for himself? Is this something the elves made to remember? It strikes me that it's probably the elves, but where did the song actually come from? Because part of it's inscribed on the ring.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think it might have. Do you know what? Sauron would have done it. Think about it.
Or it's the elves' diss track against Sauron, and he's took it in. Maybe we'll see it in Rings of Power. We'll see who did it, Galadriel or Elrond or somebody.
Yeah, I always read this not as a poem or a song, but as a curse.
Yeah. Well, they call him, Sauron is called, basically his name means stinky because he, so that, everybody else started calling him that. And so he kind of took that on. So I kind of see it as, it's like a Lucifer, Satan kind of a thing. Like his name was Lucifer was not an evil name in the first place, because it means light bringer. But he now has a different name.
Yeah, now he's called Stinky.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Exactly. The Fellowship has, I think, the bulk of these songs. There's smaller ones here and there in the rest, and I have a few that I wanted to touch on, but are there any other songs in the Fellowship we wanted to mention? All right. Well, if we missed any, let us know. But as we move on to the Two Towers, before we get, I think the main one is about the Rohirrim and some things we want to say, but there is a song that kind of hints to Gondor, and we just get the first line of it from Aragorn, but it's when they're chasing after the Uruk-hai, or I think it's after Boromir dies. Aragorn kind of sings a song about what Gondor is and kind of how it's the it's Gondor between the mountains and the sea. And I won't read the whole thing, but you can look it up. But yeah, it kind of hints at what Gondor is, because we've only seen two Gondorians, Aragorn and Boromir at this point, so we haven't made it there yet, or know anyone from there yet aside from those two. But yeah, but I think mainly it's about this one's about the Rohirrim. So Alex, I don't know if you wanted to, and if you want to hear I think the main song is The Horse and the Rider. And again, if you want to hear a recitation of that, you can look at our Rohan episode where Thomas recited it, I believe. Or it might have been our Two Towers film episode. Either way.
I think it was the Two Towers, because I remember talking about it. Yeah. So and Thomas, that's amazing. Yeah.
So Thomas did that, but so you can look back on that one. But Alex, you had a couple lines in here about the Rohirrim.
I did. So these are obviously my favorite, my favorite race of human beings in Middle Earth. And there were a couple of things that have always struck me. One, the way Tolkien describes their language, their speech, actually reminded me a lot of what Scottish the Scottish dialect sounds like. I can't go into it now. I couldn't find it in the book, but so in my mind, they all have Scottish accents, and they were, when I did their voices, they were Scottish, but Aragorn describes the Rohirrim as generous in thought and deed, bold but not cruel, wise but unlearned, writing no books but singing many songs, after the manner of the children of men before the dark years. And so again, you've got an emphasis on singing of songs. And, I'm thinking about drawing things from the first and second age into the third age. And you know how spoiler alert, when the ring is destroyed, I know. And how, I can't remember if it's in the book or if this is something that Tolkien said, that Eru Ilúvatar, which is kind of a tiny breath, is what knocked Gollum into Mount Doom. And that's what destroyed the ring. So you had all of these things working together, but you also had on another level, clearly the Valar were involved in this great defeat. And at I have a couple. So the Horn of Helm's Deep. And I think that the horn seems to be quite an important musical instrument for the Rohirrim for lots of different reasons. And the part where the Horn of Helm's Deep and Helm Hammerhand, when the siege of the orcs is happening on Helm's Deep. And in the film, it's Gimli who climbs up this tower and he blows this huge horn. I have no idea what animal had that horn on its head. Do you know? It was massive. What a barbecue after they hunted that one down. But so in the film, he blows the horn, but in the book, I couldn't see, it didn't say who did it, at least my quick perusal of it today. But here again is the power of the horn. And again, I should say this, kind of Boromir's horn. Think about what the power of Boromir's horn. That was when you have these sorts of transcendent elements coming into their world, and they understood those transcendent elements. And I think there's a connection with that and the horns. So this is from the Horn of Helm's Deep. But even as the gate fell and the orcs about it yelled, preparing to charge, a murmur arose behind them like a wind in the distance, and it grew to a clamor of many voices, crying strange news in the dawn. The orcs on the rock, hearing the rumor of dismay, wavered and looked back, and then sudden and terrible, from the tower above, the sound of the great horn of the helm rang out. And that has to be more than just somebody blowing a trumpet. Something else is going on.
Helm Hammerhand will sound in the deep one last time.
Yeah. Yes.
Which, and I think it pulls back to Orome, right? He's the great hunter with the horn and the riding the steeds with the hounds. And I think every time you get these sort of magnificent horn blasts through the course of the novels, that's always who it goes back to, right? It is. You're sort of tapping into the echo of Orome as he hunted through the primordial Arda, in the spring of Arda, and then in the fallow years, prior to Morgoth's establishment in the north. And I think that's what everything comes back to. And it's in the same way that when Morgoth got to the shores of Middle Earth and had the Silmarils attempted to be wrested from him by Ungoliant, he has the scream that he lets out, or yell, however you want to term it, but that scream embeds itself into the land itself, so that whenever anybody yells in that land, it recalls that primordial kind of scream. And I think you have the same thing going with Orome's horn down through the ages.
Yeah, I think there's a connection with all horns to Orome. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Anything else in the Two Towers music-wise we wanted to touch on? We have just the last book that has a couple, not as many as like Fellowship's the big one, but
yeah. I think the Entwife song, it's a fun song, right? And I think it fun in that it's an interesting, because it's a 2-part, right? You have the call and response effectively.
You do.
But it's also, it's a song that teaches you about the Ents and who they are.
It does. Yeah. Do you know, I have a question, because I've never experienced this anyplace else. I'm not a big hymn singer, but here at the cathedral, there are times when you have hymns and the women sing one part and the men sing the other part. Do you have that in the States anywhere? Have you ever done anything like that?
I have gone to parishes where that was a regular practice, and I've attended parishes where they don't, it appears to be entirely dependent on who the music director is.
Yeah.
Okay.
At any given parish, and what
inevitably,
their choir is.
Yeah. Oh no, this is like the when the congregation is singing, not the choir, but the congregation sings, like the men sing one bit and the women sing, and inevitably there's somebody who's not paying attention and they're singing, the guy's singing with the women or the woman is singing. That's always annoying to me. Yeah. But it often reminds me of the Ent and the Ent wives. Like, is this what it would have been like? What a neat thing to do.
Yeah. At least I know a lot of youth masses, though growing up when I went to youth masses, they did like the Lamb of God. It was a 2 parts. It was the guys would sing, Lamb of God who takes away, and being dumb youth, we would try to go as deep as we could in the song, and then the girls sing the next part. But
and they weren't trying to do anything; they're just trying to sing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, being reverent, unlike us. But
oh goodness.
Awesome. Well, then we can move on to Return of the King, and there's just a few. The first one that I kind of saw that I thought was worth noting was, it was not so much a song, but it's I think it is, again, it's like poetry, so it counts as a song, but it's the second prophecy by the Gondorian seer, or Gondoran, I don't know which, seer Malbeth, who mentioned he kind of has a foretelling of the Grey Company passing through the Pass of the Dead, with foretelling Aragorn and that when the king's ship returns to Gondor. But it's not in the movie at all, because the Grey Company is not in the movie, or at least they're just off screen, so and you don't see them. But I don't know if y'all, it's just a brief, little kind of poem, and it's on Tolkien Gateway. You can look up. I found it under the link for Malbeth, and he gives that prophecy as in there. So,
what's
but I think the main one we want to talk. Oh, you want to? Do I need to read the whole thing and recite it?
No, I was just like, what's he?
No, it's just talking about it's passing through the tower trembles, to the tombs of kings doom approaches, the dead awaken, for the hour is come for the oath breakers. At the stone of Eric they shall stand again, and hear there a horn in the hills ringing. Whose horn shall it be? Who shall call them? Yeah. So that's just a part of it.
Very cool. Well,
in the chapter,
glad you read that.
Passing of the Grey Company. Yeah. I didn't read the whole, I just kind of went in the middle.
No, but you got the horn part. That's kind of the theme. So
yeah, I think the main song, song we hear is the Pelennor Fields, the song of the battle song of the Rohirrim. And Alex, this was your note, so if you want to take it away.
See, I just do you know what, this page in the book is like wet with tears. I love this whole thing. I just love it. But again, I think this is evidence of something transcendent breaking through into this battle, and you can see it, and which I think is so brilliant. This is, Tolkien is such a brilliant man. So this is the battle song of the Rohirrim. With that, Theoden seized a great horn from Gutlof, his banner bearer, and he blew it with such a blast that it burst asunder. And straightway all the horns in the host were lifted up in music, and the blowing of the horns of Rohan in that hour was like a storm upon the plain and a thunder in the mountains. The front of the first Eored roared like a breaker foaming to the shore, but Theoden could not be overtaken. Fey he seemed, or the battle fury of his fathers ran like new fire in his veins, and he was borne up on Snowmane like a god of old, even as Orome the Great in the battle of the Valar when the world was young. And then all the host of Rohan burst into song, and they sang as they slew, for the joy of battle was on them, and the sound of their singing that was fair and terrible came even to the city. That's amazing. So I think, yeah. And again, who blows a horn and it explodes? That's crazy. Do you know what I mean? Like that's, yeah. There was something else going on, and it's almost like Orome was coming through and in the battle himself with the Rohirrim.
Yeah. And then two, I'm trying to find it because I do have my copy of, I happen to have it right here. The Theoden's words of, what is it? If I can find it real quick. But the ride of the Rohirrim, it's talking about,
ride to Gondor.
Ride now. Well, no, even that. I'm talking about the charge of the Rohirrim.
I literally just opened it up to the page.
Yeah.
Is it arise, riders of Theoden? That part?
No, it's let's see. I'm trying to. It's when they're actually charging at Pelennor. I should have written this down. I thought about.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I'm
sympathetically turning through.
I'm struggling to find it. Well, it's in the movie. He says a sword day, a red day before the sun rises. It's that whole speech. And the text. I remember the text. It talks about him looking like Orome the hunter, and on his horse, on Theoden on his horse Snowmane. So.
Oh yeah, and that was just one of the greatest scenes in the whole trilogy, that speech.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
By Bernard, can't remember his name. Rest his soul.
And I did find just after that part, it talks about how there's no song that will be, as great as this, for it was a great battle and the full count of it no tale is told. So long afterward, a maker in Rohan said in his song of the mounds of Mundberg, and again, I won't read this whole thing, but it's the end of chapter Battle of Pelennor Fields, chapter 6 of Return of the King. But there's a whole, basically a poem song about it. But its last lines are, death in the morning and at day's ending, lords took and lowly. Long now they sleep under grass in Gondor by the great river. Gray now as tears, gleaming silver, red then it rolled, roaring water. Foam dyed with blood, flamed at sunset, as beacons, mountains burned at evening. Red fell the dew in Ramas Ekor. So yeah, very just cool. another.
So you'd love to sit around like, a fire in a long hall, and listen to that, the bard singing about these battles. As you're an old warrior, and son, I was there at that battle.
Yeah,
so cool.
And then the last one that I really had on here was the song about or it's really more of a poem, again, a poem, but it's, it's about the black breath, it's about the houses of healing, the Ethelis plant and it's kind of a rhyme about what the Ethelis plant can do. And it's short, so I'll just read it, but this is spoken by the lore master, the herb masters in the houses of healing. So this is after the battle when, everyone's being healed or, who's still alive. But it's when the black breath blows and death's shadow grows and all lights paths. Come Ethelis, life to the dying in the king's hand lying. Because it is lore in the text that the Ethelis plants can be used for healing by the royal line of Numenor, basically, that it can be used to has healing properties that that don't happen with just your average person. So
are you saying Toriel was of the royal line when she healed? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, she could be.
Well, we made it in, folks. Somehow got there.
Somehow.
Yes.
We weren't going to reference it.
Somehow Emperor Palpatine survived.
Yes. Yeah. She could be the, Elrond's cousin or something.
Gosh. Help us anyway.
But yeah, that's pretty much all the songs and texts that I had. Is there anything in Return of the King that we're missing that we wanted to talk about before we kind of wrap up?
Well, I think the problem is we could just go on talking about things. So we're going to just, we could just talk forever.
Yeah. Anything from you, Pat, on the...
Yeah. No, I think we covered, the vast majority of them. I've always, in my mind wanted to hear what kind of songs the Pukul Men sing, because they have songs, like, as crazy as they are, they have to, and they're men and men sing. So I dearly want to hear those. But yeah, I think we covered a lot of it, right? A lot of it we get in Fellowship.
The more serious the quest becomes, the more intense the songs become, but they're less frequent.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts on music or any of the music in the text or anything else you want to say before we close out?
I think overall, what I've really liked about all of the adaptations of, into film from Tolkien's works has been their use of the music and the songs that were in the text. And I think those are often some of the best parts. And I think Tolkien's, love of words and music and that building itself into song really lend itself very well into the medium. And, like a lot of things, songs are often easier to remember because they rhyme. And so
That's the whole point.
I will have the Goblin Town song stuck in my head probably till I die. Just because it's, it rhymes and it's alliterative and it's just one of those fun little songs.
Yeah. And I think the songs make higher quality world building because we do sing, that's part of our lives, and you can read a really good novel, but if you don't have, you could say, oh, so-and-so's listening to this song or so-and-so was singing this song. But when you bring the songs into it so that you can actually sing them yourself, I think it just helps with that, bringing you even more into the world.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I love the music, poems and music and everything in the text. And we'll definitely have to do another episode in the future on the scores and the songs that were adapted into the films, because I think there's some really good ones there. But for now, I think that is it for this episode of The Secrets of Middle-earth. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our patrons who make this show possible, including Adam M., Joanne S., Steve N., Iris V., and Gretchen L. Their generous donations at GiveStarQuest.com make it possible for us to continue The Secrets of Middle-earth and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting GiveStarQuest.com. And be sure to follow The Secrets of Middle-earth in Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or any podcast directory or app. And you can find us on social media at Facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or on X, where we are at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we are at StarQuest Network. And don't forget, you can get your own official Secrets of Middle-earth merch, including our awesome t-shirt at sqpn.com/merch. It's a great way for you to support the show and show your love for Tolkien and the wonderful world of Middle-earth. Now, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners. What do you think about music in the Legendarium? What is your favorite song from the text? You can let us know on our Facebook page or on Twitter, or by sending an email to middleearth@sqpn.com, by leaving us a comment on YouTube or on Spotify, or by visiting our channel on the StarQuest Discord server at sqpn.com/Discord. So join us next time for another episode discussing the world of Middle-earth. Until then, thank you, Alix Murray, for joining me and sharing the secrets of Middle-earth.
Thank you, Jeff. I enjoyed it.
I did as well. And Patrick Mason, thank you too.
You're welcome.
Hey, Noel, Mary Noel. And Tom Bombadil is Melkor in Punish. No, I'm kidding.
No.
It's the Discord. And once again, I'm Jeff Haecker. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Stargate. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Stargate.